Thank you, and I'd like to add my voice to the chorus of thank yous and appreciations and gratitude and marveling at this really one of a kind conference. To be honest with you, humans are great apes. We separated from the our nearest great ape relatives, chimpanzees and bonobos, about 6 million years ago. In terms of time depth, we're about as related to one another as rats are with mice, horse are with zebras. Now, horses and zebras and rats and mice are different species, but psychologically, cognitively, they're fairly similar. And humans seem to be in a different category from the other great apes in many ways. And so, my question that I've been pursuing for the last several decades is how did humans get to be so different? And the truth is, we actually have an answer to that question on one level. And it's going to raise more, but on one level, we have an answer to that question. And that is that a new process entered into the evolution in the human species, and that is a process of cultural evolution, not just culture, but cultural evolution. And that is, I've called it way back many years ago, the ratchet effect. And that is something like the following, that somebody back there somewhere started using a rock as a hammer, and everybody else saw it and copied it. And then some brilliant individual, or possibly a pair of individuals or something, decided if you hafted it onto a hammer, you could get more force. And then some individuals, skipping a few millennia, whatever, all of a sudden we got iron and we got whatever. But now it's going to be, the point is that each of these transitions, it's one individual that does it and everybody else gets it for free. And now, next step, some other individual does it, and everybody gets it for free. And next step, everybody else does it, gets it, copies and gets it for free. And we end up with steam-driven pile drivers, if skimming over a few details in the process. But the point is that no individual does this. This is a historical process. It's a process of the culture. It's a kind of a pooling of the human cognitive resources over time. And this is why we live in a world of computers and whatnot, and the chimpanzees are still in the forest as they were 6 million years ago. A thought experiment sort of crystallizes my proposal here. The proposal is that if a human child were born on a desert island and magically kept alive, no social interaction with anyone whatsoever, Robinson Crusoe-like, that individual's cognitive skills as an adult would be very similar to chimpanzees. They would not be different, may be a little different, but not much at all. And that is because humans are adapted to soak up culture. They are adapted to communicate, collaborate, to learn from others in the group. And here, this lonely little kid here would be have all those capacities, but no way to exercise them. It would be like being born in the darkness. Your eye would atrophy. Those capacities would have no raw material to act. So now this raises the question. I said the sort of answer to why humans are so very different, it comes in the ratchet effect, cumulative cultural evolution. So now we want to know what capacities does an individual born into this world, an individual human being born into the world, what do they have to be able to participate in this process of cumulative cultural evolution? What do they bring to the table, so to speak? Now, you could say, well, humans are just smarter overall. Our brains are roughly 3 times the size of apes, and so maybe we're just smarter overall. But I don't think, I think research in our lab and others suggests something a little more subtle than that. This is our great, huge study, over 100 children, over 100 chimpanzees. Took a lot of work in a lot of different populations, over 16 tasks for all of them, kind of a huge, I don't want to call it, I told everybody you can't call it an IQ test, but I'll call it an IQ test just to give you the flavor. And what I am showing you here is just a very overall summary. So on the tasks of physical cognition, and this has to do with space, we rotate things around and see if they can follow them. Causality, mainly with choosing tools, not using tools, but choosing the right tool with the right causal properties for a task. Quantitative skills, which they're pretty good at, on the one hand, and on the other hand, social tasks. So social learning, communication, not language, but a gesturing communication. That's theory of mind, but it's really intention reading more specifically. And what we found was that 2-year-old children, 2.5-year-old children, have basically the great ape issue of general physical cognitive skills with the physical world. Nothing different. In fact, if you look, the chimps are just a tad higher, which really made me happy. But in the social domain, the children are like double the value of the other great apes. So already at 2.5 years of age, something is happening in social cognition that is special in humans. Now you might say, well, yeah, but as adults, we're smarter overall. Here's what I can tell you, that if you grew up by yourself on that desert island, your skills with space would not be any better than a chimpanzee's. I was in the jungle with the chimpanzees for a month, and I promise you their skills of spatial navigation are better than yours are if you can't have your compass or your GPS. Quantities, what would you invent on your own? We have a lot of mathematicians in the room. What would you have invented on an island by yourself? Well, you'd certainly have grade ape quantitative skills. Would you invent arithmetic? Maybe. Would you invent algebra? I doubt it. Okay, so these are cultural products, and at 2.5 years old, the child has got the general issue stuff, and then they're going to participate in culture, and they're going to learn all of these things from other people by collaborating, communicating with them, and learning from them. I'm going to summarize a lot of different arguments and work by just saying, let's call all of this adaptations for cooperation. Now, we just heard Simon Levin talking about all these amazing types of collective intelligence of birds and fish and what all. So I want to make clear that what I mean is cooperation of a very special type. I'm a psychologist by training, so that's cooperation with a different set of psychological mechanisms than those that are at work in other primates and other species. And the reason is because we're a great ape, and this is my most recent work on the evolution of agency. And in that book, I argue that great apes are rational agents. And by the word, rational means lots of things, but what I mean by it is that they understand the causality of physical forces. Only some, of course, and very concrete, but like they understand weight has a causal force. They understand the intentionality of other agents. And again, not a full-blown human-like theory of mind, but they understand that others see things, that others have goals. And they make rational decisions. By that, I mean balancing their priors and evidence in Bayesian inferences. So they really use evidence, again, everything in a simplified form, but in the way that human children do, maybe not the way that adults do. But when it comes to cooperation, and what I want to focus on here is collaboration, actually working together to solve a task together, to do something together, it's a different story. So you don't see great apes carrying something together, or one of them does this while one of them holding it steady while the other one hammers on it. You don't see that kind of collaboration in the natural world. And so they do collaborate some, and you're going to see some in just a moment in the very next slide, I believe. But they're using one another as social tools is the way we have captured it. So they know they need the partner, and they react to what the partner's doing. But humans are going to have a shared goal for a shared benefit, all right? And it's really going to be a shared agency. And that's going to be sorry, it wasn't the very next slide. I have to introduce the shared agency first. So I'm going to call it shared agency. And I want to say shared agency because I want to emphasize again, it's coming out of ape rational agency. And what is not unique here, but what is characteristic of it is its interdependent collaboration. And now we get into game theory where we're making interdependent decisions, and I want to do it if you want to do it, but you only want to do it if I want to do it. And so we get into the familiar circle of coordination games. But we have shared goals and shared attentions for mutual benefit, shared attention and knowledge. And now we're in Jennifer Nagel's realm here, but I want to talk about it not as conversation in language, but in action. Shared attention and knowledge, and social coordination and cooperative communication. I actually have an earlier book arguing that human cooperative communication, which includes not only conventional communication like language, but also pointing and pantomiming, which are unique to humans as well. And they are cooperative because they're used to inform others of things helpfully. And that they evolved exactly to solve coordination problems because collaborating requires coordination. So I want to say shared rational agent. Some of the philosophers of action call it we intentionality. We are doing this together. Jennifer gave a very nice exposition of doing it. We are doing it together. We know together that we're doing it together. And just because it's on natural philosophy, get in a philosopher here, I think Rousseau sort of had a grip on it all the way back. He says, the commitments that bind us to the social body are obligatory only because they are mutual and their nature is such that in fulfilling them, one cannot work for others without at the same time working for oneself. So, as you know, Darwin already recognized that cooperation was a potential problem for his theory. He worried about the ants and the bees endlessly because every individual has to survive on its own and pass along its genes. But when you have situations of interdependence where my fitness depends on your fitness, now that's how you get off the ground. So the two ways you get cooperation off the ground are kin selection, which is the insect solution, and interdependence, which is widespread. Symbiosis between different species as a situation of interdependence. But the humans have this rational agency going on and interdependence on top of it. And again, if you notice back here, the great apes understand others as intentional. So they are forming a shared agency with someone they understand as an intentional agent. Rousseau also was the first to describe the game theory situation of the stag hunt, and I have argued in a number of places that I believe that is the one that is the best model for what happened in human evolution. That is, the stag hunt is where we can do some things by ourselves, foraging getting some low quality foods by ourselves. But if we want to get the stag, if we want to get the big thing and go home and feed the whole family for a week, then we have to cooperate with someone because it takes collaboration to bring down the stag. And there's some other ones. The snowdrift or volunteer's dilemma is another good model for some other situations that lead to this. And importantly, I want to make sure I emphasize it has partner choice. So everyone, a lot of people who are evolution of cooperation people, they immediately will say, well, wait a minute, you can be interdependent all you want, but there's still a motivation to free ride or to cheat sometimes. Yes, but you have partner choice. So you and I are going out to collaboratively forage, and at the end, you take all the food. I never choose you as a partner again. And if we're at a stage in evolution where we got some communication, I'll go back and gossip to all my friends that you're a bad partner and you're a goner. All right. So there's social selection. Darwin already talked about sexual selection, where individuals' fitness was dependent on whether they were chosen by others of their kind sexually. This is a partner choice, is a social selection for collaboration. And so it's an important part of the mechanism of how humans became so cooperative was that uncooperative, and this also includes skills for cooperation, communication, and all kinds of stuff, as well as moral things like sharing the food at the end. So social selection is what gets us off the ground. So in my work over the last decade or so, I've focused on two outcomes of these adaptations for coordinating with others, collaborating with others, that I think happened in human evolution. And one of them called A Natural History of Human Thinking. And I wanted to put the title up because Sean and I talked just a moment ago. In addition to natural philosophy as a description of science in the ancient world, natural history also was used. And I'm not enough of a scholar, historian to know the relation between them, but natural history has had a tendency to be used toward the biological world. You could say natural history for cosmology, of course, but If you go to a natural history museum, you're likely to see dinosaurs and not meteors. So natural history tends to be about the biological world. And in direction of Jennifer Nagel's talk, I actually have argued, I argue in this book that this putting yourself together in a shared agency requires you to coordinate perspectives with others. You see it this way, but I see it this way, and we have to negotiate how best to collaborate. And that this ultimately is the source of our notion of the objective world. Now, I know that's a shock to some of you, but I believe that chimpanzees and other primates do not have an understanding of the distinction between subjective perspectives and the objective world. They see something, they think it's a snake, they go over as a stick. They say snake, 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 oh, stick, and they just move on. They don't think I was wrong. They don't think somebody saw it differently. Right? We have this idea that, oh, you could be wrong, I could be wrong. There's the objective out there. The philosophers among you, Donald Davidson triangulation, it's a version of that. When we simultaneously are looking at the same thing and you think one thing is the case and I think something else is the case, we have to resolve it, the objective world. And that's, of course, what we do in science all the time. That's the basis of science, is that we want to find out something that's independent, objective, independent of any one of our subjective perspectives on things. But that's not what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about the other one. So I wrote also A Natural History of Human Morality. And this is the more social side of the collaboration, how we self-regulate our collaborative activities and make sure that our partner doesn't cheat and make sure that everyone perceives us as a good cooperative partner. And for that, my proposal is that normativity, now normativity, I heard a thing saying, said scratch a philosopher and they automatically say normativity, normativity. So normativity has been part of an interest of philosophers from the Greeks onward. This is the world that ought to be, not the world that is. And we know that you can't get to the way the world ought to be from the way it is. That's David Hume and other people. But I'm doing a natural history. And the natural history means I want to know how humans came to be moral, normative creatures. And I believe to understand that, you have to understand shared agency and regulating shared agencies. We are doing this together, so you must do this and I must do that if we are going to be successful. Those are all normative judgments about our collaborative activity. And so again, trying to make analogies in this wider thing. Force, the four forces, they got one force, normative force. And normative force is I feel obligated to you to do my part in the collaboration. And I expect you to feel obligated to me and to fulfill your obligations. And I give you the right to chastise me if I don't do my part. And you give me the right, you entitle me to chastise you. This normative world, my proposal is, comes out of shared agencies. So I'm going to talk about several dimensions of that. Let's start first with sharing the spoils at the end. I'm going to start with the end point of the collaboration because I believe this is where chimpanzees can't get off the ground. People always ask me if this kind of collaboration is so great, why don't chimps do it? They can't get past step one, and here it is. Okay, so this was for a BBC thing, so you'll hear
what will the chimpanzee do?
Yeah, and apologize for the music, but there it is.
He realizes he can't do it on his own and removes the peg.
Okay, sorry, I didn't preface it right. Okay, so this is a task where they both have to pull at the same time. Because if you only pull one, it threads through. The rope is threaded through. And they learn that very quickly. So they've learned it before this task. And what the BBC did was they filmed two experiments in one. And so the first part is not the relevant part for me here, but it's amazing that they really know they need the partner. They go get a partner to do it. But there's the part about the food that I'm going to focus on here.
So what will the chimpanzee do?
So she knows she needs a partner.
He realizes he can't do it on his own.
She unlocks the door. That was one publication. And now what I'm focused on is the second part.
They pull the rope together.
Okay, so they do fine, right? And that's because We have separated the food for them. Okay, they each get their own food. Now let's see the food fight that happens
In
when you
this
put the
situation,
food in the middle.
chimpanzees help each other. Will the two chimps still help each other as humans would?
This one here is the dominant one, and they both know that.
Both hold
So the
rope.
subordinate is a little
One of them
reluctant.
pulls the plank in.
And anybody who knows anything
But
about
the
chimps,
dominant chimpanzee grabs all the food.
this is the way chimps are built. They resolve disputes over food by dominance, as do many creatures. And so that's the way all the great apes do it. Right? So now let's compare that to this alien intelligence, as it was called earlier today. This version of alien intelligence. This is 3-year-old German children. They'll say some things in German, but it has a subtext under it. I chose this one because the little boy in red is going to act like a chimp at first, but not in the end. The little boy on the left says something about none in mind because this is 4 gummy bears. 4 gummy bears. The little boy comes over. The boy in blue is saying that none in mind because he means it's not on his side. He doesn't take them all. He starts to take more. And little boy says, no. And they each end up with 2. And they can do this all day long. Essentially, they do it as we ask the parents ahead of time, how many gummy bears can your child have? And they do it until they get full of gummy bears. And they do it 2 and 2. Now, 3-year-old children are not very good at math, but they can tell 2 and 2. And so they do it like that. And you heard the little boy say, no. If one of them starts to take more than 2, they object. So they have a self-regulating mechanism for getting this done. And it's called, you're going to see it more in a moment, it's going to be a protest. And now this is the key study for my point, is that this was a study we did where any of you have any 3-year-olds at home, you'll say, my 3-year-old's not very generous, they don't share, they're not very fair. That's because they have it in their hands already. But we set up a situation where they collaborate. And now you're going to see what happens. Now, watch carefully. These are some marbles, and they use the marbles there as tokens for a reward. And you'll see they're going to pull together. They're going to collaborate on whoops, 3 to one side, 1 to the other. That little child says, I only have 1. And the other kid comes over and gives it to him. And now they have 2 each again. Okay, we have a control condition. In the control condition, they come in and it's already 3 marbles on one side and 1 on the other. And now they almost never share. These are the best data I ever got. I think they shared 88% of the time when they pulled and 11% of the time when they didn't pull. So I think the title of this paper was something like collaboration facilitates equal sharing in children, but not chimpanzees. So we have a chimpanzee version, because chimps aren't very good at sharing. It had to be a little bit different, but basically they pulled in and it kind of went 2 to me, 1 to you, and 1 kind of in the middle, and the guy with 2 could protect it or not protect it. And the main point was it didn't matter whether the other guy had pulled in or not pulled in, whether it was just there or whether he had actually contributed, it didn't matter. So in these children, it mattered if the other person was a collaborator, then you have to share fairly with them, and if not, not. We also have studies of free riding, and chimpanzees do not punish free riders. And young children from around 4 or 5 years of age, if somebody's free riding, they start objecting and they, well, yeah, but you didn't do it. You know, all right. As I have a teenage daughter at home who complains about the science projects where she does all the work and all the other kids are free riding all the time. Okay, here's another version, which is they're in the, this is going to be a collaborative task you will see, and they are going to, they have to pull up, and each of them has rewards on their side, but there has to be a hole in this apparatus for them to reach it, and we've rigged it so that one of them gets their reward first. So the girl on the left is going to have access to her reward first, and the question is, does she persist until the other one gets her reward? I picture early humans here. So she's got her reward, but it's a token and she hasn't gone to cash it in. She now sees the problem. She sees the other girl's is closed. So before she cashes in, she's still got it in her hand. Now she helps the other girl. And now they cash in. Okay? Any of you know anything about chimpanzees? Okay? This is the social tool explanation. The chimpanzees will pull together. Okay? One of them gets their reward, gets their token gone. Okay, they don't care what happened to the other one. The other one's a social tool. I know I need them. I react to them, etc. But I'm not obligated to them. I don't have a commitment to them. I don't owe them anything. And this is again some of the my view of the sort of normativity and morality side comes from the ultimately the Peter Strawson resentment side, Thomas Scanlon on what we owe one another. So they don't feel like they owe one another anything from the fact that they're collaborating. The chimps don't, and the kids clearly do. So now you'll see the actual normative protests. So now what we have done here is again the same pulling in task. This pulling in task has been very good to us. And the girl on the left is the one we're interested in. And she believes that both of them have learned how to play this game and now they're going to play. But surreptitiously, we have taught the one on the other side to do something different. And so you're going to see how the girl on the left reacts when the other one doesn't do her thing the way she should. First, she tells her what to do it up and down. Man muss, one has to do it this way. Right? There's the normative language. Not I don't like it or I want it. One has to do it this way. Man muss an Seil ziehen. One has to pull on the rope. Somehow I lost the sound here, but okay. Doesn't matter. Okay. So think about it for a moment. This child could say, I don't like it when you do that. I want you to do something different. That's not the language. It's not the language of personal. It's the language of one has to do it this way. And in German, saying one must is common. It sounds a little stilted in English, but in German, the man muss is quite common. So one must is the language because this is, given what we agreed, you agreed we were going to do it together. And now you're not doing it, so you have to do it. So this normative language is coming from there. And finally, if the child themselves breaks it, just watch down on the bottom. Watch the bottom two. This is a girl who has agreed to play a game with the adult. They say, let's play the game. Okay, okay. We call that a joint commitment. And now somebody's going to come along and lure her away from the joint commitment. She's going to break her joint commitment. Okay. All right, we're not studying politeness. But what we found was that if they had agreed to play the game ahead of time, they always made some kind of excuse when they left or notified leaving. And if they didn't have that agreement, they were playing and the adult came up afterwards, just joined them, then they just took off when the new thing came. Right? So they recognized that you made a joint commitment and that you broke it. And then finally, they actually making a joint commitment, which was not that common, but you can see these little kids, they have to pull to one side. If they pull to one side, only one of them gets a reward. If they pull to the other side, only the other one gets a reward. All right? So they have to take turns. And they're arguing over which one goes first because they know that each of them wants to be first. And okay. And in your literature on the evolution of cooperation, commitment is really important, and advertising your commitment and making sure your partner knows you're committed. And the joint commitment is a way of, it creates the normative bond and says you have to now go forward. And I said finally twice now. The third finally is this scales up on the cultural level to actually, this child is not involved in this at all. So this is just a game they learned about. The game doesn't really matter. It's just a game this child learned about, and the puppet is playing it wrong. And the child uses the language of right and wrong.
Der Schuh.
Okay. So you see the language of right, wrong, and cheated. Okay, and a fourth finally is normative social learning. Getting back to the ratchet effect, I want to show you. This is a phenomenon called over-imitation. This this adult is going to, they're taking the rice from the big bucket to the little bucket, and the adult says, I'm going to take the rice, I'm going to show you how to do it. And there's how the adult does it. Now it's the child's turn, and she's going to take the rice from the big bucket to the little bucket. All right. And when you ask kids why they're doing it, they say, well, because that's the way it's supposed to be done. Right? This is the way. So when you're teaching, this is the way it's supposed to be done. So that in this ratchet effect, this is part of what keeps the ratchet firm. Is that children don't just learn here's a useful way to do something by observing others. Then this is the way you do things in this culture. So anyway, finally, then I will wrap up by saying that there is actually a physical characteristic that is potentially a marker of this. My genetic colleagues in Leipzig, Svante Pabo and all, wanted to think about finding a gene. Of the over 200 species of non-human primates, they all have basically, you can't see the sclera. They have sclera, but it's behind, and when they look straight ahead, you can't see it. And in humans, it's quite visible. And one hypothesis is that this is to facilitate coordination and joint attention and stuff in collaboration, because if you're competing, you don't want others to know where you're looking, but if you're cooperating, you want others to know where you're looking. So, conclusion, human children are adapted for collaboration and culture in ways that other grapes are not, and these adaptations are fundamental to uniquely human processes of cognition, communication, culture, and morality. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for Sean and Jenna to invited me for doing this comment, and it has been like a pleasure to be here and an honor to comment on Michael Tomasello's work. It forced me to go back to my previous work on moral development, uh, so that I haven't think about those issues for the last, I don't know, 15 or 10 years, but it was a pleasure to just go back to those issues. So I will base my comment on one of Tomasello's review paper of his research on 2014. So maybe some of the issues related to agency might not be completely captured. So, starting with this AI generated image that I thought might capture a little bit the big picture that Michael has the contrast between how chimps how they might share some activity, but later on they are not sharing the goods, and how children they keep sharing. Not just for cooperations to get some goods, but they keep sharing for after the activity. So this this might be a way to think about like the big picture that the contrast that Michael's offer. So collaboration and cooperation and fairness are far stronger in children than in chimpanzees. Humans are ultra social animals. They possess motivation and cognitive systems turned for this type of ultra sociality that that goes for share intentionality and share agency. So I focus on the trajectory and the basis of social and moral development in children. So his central thesis that he already presented is that from chimps from humans, we switch from a dyadic collaboration to a shared intentionality, and from intergroup rivalry to a normal bond cultures that that is reinforced in shared intentionality. And he suggests some stages of development that I thought would be interesting to at least to understand how infants develop this shared intentionality. So it starts with emotional sharing, joint attention, and then you move to building a common ground, and around 2 and 3 years, you start aligning and exchanging perspectives. And then from 3 to 5 years, you develop this coordination of conflict perspectives. And it's mostly when the development of fairness emerges. Okay, so my comment will be less on correct this view, but it suggests something that might complement the view, kind of completeness of Tomasello's developmental picture. Okay, so the question is what drives these developmental stages and then transitions between them. If there are anything we could add to this picture he offers. So 3 questions I will explore. The first one: how does joint attention develop? Is its development sharp, as Michael proposed, like the 9-month revolution, or is gradual? And what are the source of this epistemic motivation for this social learning that emerged through shared intentionality? It's curiosity or cooperation or both? And I will end up with a discussion about what drives moral development. It's fairness, or if there is something else that beyond cooperation. If ownership or negotiation of value might be involved in moral development. So I will go very brief. I'll talk very briefly for the two first questions, because I think Jennifer Nagel's and Alison Gopnik's talk I read mention and elaborate some ideas about those 2 points. Okay, so early joint attention. So there is a recent finding that joint attention might emerge earlier and gradually. So you don't have this 9-month revolution. So it seems that 40% of infants produce joint attention beads via overt communication by 6 months, and less than 8% by 8 months, or more than 8% by 8 months. What are the implications for this finding is the fact that joint attention might arise before many of the reason capacities we develop later. Maybe the models that require some sort of recursive mind reading for joint attention may be too strong, okay? And I think joint attention might be a kind of more minimal and primitive capacity that might be already present in early communications. And I think Jennifer Nagel's work yesterday was touching a little bit in this idea that maybe common knowledge might not require all this recursive mind reading, but just joint attention in more basic communications, okay? Okay, so what drives social epistemic development? So how social learning emerges and what might drive this? So in Michael Tomasello's picture, this is driven by cooperation. We start sharing emotions and then joint attention. And what motivates us to share intentionality would be cooperation. And there is one discussion whether there is other the other drive that might drive social epistemic development. And I think the work of Alison Gopnik might be a good example in this of this capacity. So the idea of an exploratory account where children's brain attuned to treat learning as learning itself as pleasurable, with a sort of an internal and a real-world function for information might be present since the beginning, before this, before children be driven by cooperation. So again, I'm not trying to correct the account, but maybe a sort of hybrid account might be a way to go here. Maybe the intrinsic epistemic reward is a sort of a generative source of epistemic development, and shared intentionality that Michael's described provides the kind of this powerful multiplier of this the social epistemic development. So in this picture, human social epistemic culture may rely on two co-evolved adaptations, exploratory minds and cooperative minds that mutually amplify each other. Okay. And then, okay, so if these 2 points are right, maybe this is an image from Michael's book. We should just probably in between the emotion sharing, the joint attention, and the aligned change of perspectives between this first from 0 to 2 years, you might add something else. Maybe curiosity might motivate this pathway, and probably joint attention might happen before the current picture is suggested. Okay, so I'll spend more time in what drives moral development, because I think it's maybe where I can contribute with my own work. So for Tomasello, cooperation is what drives moral development. So fairness, and even all the examples he showed with children that either felt guilt or shame when they are involved in sharing or cooperating or collaborating in an activity. And the third part, punishment, might emerge as a safeguard to collaboration and group cohesion. Okay, so interdependence and cultural competition is what forged this engine of our unique morality. I'll suggest a different picture where moral development might also not just be forged by this cooperation and collaboration, but involves some sort of self-interest and value negotiation. So maybe not just sharing, but ownership might drive moral development. One example comes from a study we conduct with children in the streets of Recife in Brazil that show that self-interest often runs as deep or deeper than cooperation. Okay, so here is the results of this study. You can see the Brazil 3 example here, children from streets of Recife, and 3 years old and 5 years old both attribute for themselves more goods than we expected. Okay, so it varies from culture to culture. You can see in Peru and Fiji that with more rural areas, children attribute, even children at 3 years old attribute less goods to them. But there is some effect here that is culturally shaped and might involve some sort of self-interest. Okay, so here is a way to put this. Maybe 3 years old attribute to themselves, they have this self-interest involved, and moved at 5 years old to fairness. But you can see from this picture, this results here that the transition between fairness and self-interest and fairness might be shaped a lot by cultural variation. Okay, so at 3 years old, from different cultures, when sharing a pile of cans, most children keeping more for themselves. At 5 years old, they share more equally, with some children visibly giving more to others. So one way to understand this picture is that children raised in small scale and collectivist settings show more sensitive to fairness, whereas those in large scale individualist urban settings remain more self-oriented. So one way to understand, so what might be playing a role in this development, why self-interest might be also a force together with cooperation. Maybe one way to understand this is to think about development, not just about shared intention and how this joint attention might result in shared intentionality, but add an extra stage that I call tertiary intersubjectivity, where value negotiation is also present. So I'm not just helping others collectively, but I'm also negotiating the value of my possessions. Okay, so what is mine and what belongs to others might also be part of what drive moral development. So here is an example of this, is the stages. And okay, so how we can connect this self-interest with moral development? One way to connect this is through stages of self-consciousness. So during our development, we have different stages of self-development. We start with a sort of minimal self that evolves, develops in autogenesis, and one important type of self is interpersonal self-consciousness. That is the way others, we represent what others see about ourselves. And this might be a crucial step in this process. So maybe self-awareness is a way of scaffold both altruism and cooperation and self-presentation. Okay, and although Michael discussed this type of interpersonal self-consciousness, his model of interpersonal self-consciousness is very based in the second person perspective that is related to Sifendaro's idea of mutual recognition. But I think there is one interpersonal self-consciousness that is still can be grounded in first-person perspective. There is a first-person perspective authority that develops through development that might be related to this possessive self, that might be a sort of a negotiation between things we possess and we have interest invested, and the normative part of this obliged self that will conform to norms. Okay, so I would add in the second personal image, this is also from Michael's book, from the helping and sharing and the fairness with partner, there is self-consciousness development that might be part of this picture. Okay, conclusion, self-interest and self-consciousness are crucial force in children's moral development. Thank you.